Alright, here's another video about home security systems, and this time I'm going to talk about your processing software. And the reason I'm choosing this next after storage is this is probably the next most limiting thing. Meaning, what if you have to choose your own processing software and your NVR, if you choose an NVR, which I talked about in the previous video, that may be done for you. For example, if you choose Ubiquiti's UniFi setup, you're not really going to have a choice. You can skip this whole video, mission accomplished, you're done. Now, there may be other drawbacks to that system, but this video is pretty pointless to you. You got it covered. But if you have many software options or you are interested in maybe wrapping other software around an existing system just to see what you like or don't like, then this may be more for you. So the first thing is pricing. There's free, one-time cost, and subscription. I absolutely do not recommend subscription services almost ever unless you have literally no other options. But especially for security systems. And the reason is, it's just, imagine not paying a subscription to your security system provider. So then all of a sudden, your credit card gets declined or something 1 month, right? So then your security system shuts off and you can't store anything? What in the world is that? Just imagine that. No. I don't recommend anyone deals with that. Find good free. Usually in the free category, you're going to want something that is considered open source, meaning that its code is available for people to see. And the benefits of that, it sounds scary, but the benefits of that are that a lot of those pieces of software, if they're any good, end up with a large community of people watching for security defects and making improvements. And you can really seriously do your research, whether it's free or one-time cost that you're interested. Do your research in trying to make sure that it's secure. And I'll get to this later about how important it is and why it's important. So, features. After pricing, features. Do you want to access it from outside of your house? Really, like sitting in Starbucks, drinking coffee? Would you like to be able to see your video feeds? A lot of times software, whatever software you choose, will have a baked-in solution for that, or not. Personally, for me, I didn't need that. In fact, I actively do not want it. LAN access is another one. And LAN access and WAN access and client server all kind of come together depending on the software you're going with. Because all that means is you have a device, and it can be anything, like a computer, whatever, that is acting as the main processor of video. And that thing is on all the time, while all of your other devices, your phones, your computers, your laptops, everything can be on and off, and they're separate. They can view the video feeds being processed by your, well, in this case, what is a server? The thing that is running the core, usually one core of this software, right? And a lot of times software will come with two parts: a server part that's always on and just processes stuff, and oftentimes looks like a black box with a whole bunch of text in it scrolling through. And then there's another part that's the viewer part. And the viewer is like for the PC that I am, for example, recording this video on right now. A regular PC that you turn on and off and use whenever you feel like it for whatever you feel like it. And there's nothing special or unique about it. That is often part of these pieces of software, to have the kind of two separate parts that can talk to each other. So in that sense, in those situations, you can very easily access your video feeds from anywhere on your personal network, right? So that's why the client and server kind of come together with LAN access in most situations. And you can get software that is all in one, but oftentimes that comes with less or limited or no uh, other network device access. Like you can maybe install it on a regular Windows PC, but you couldn't also, and you can record video and everything, but you couldn't also access it from your phone at the same time. So that's reasonably common if they all come together. And that can make installation and setup a little bit daunting, but it's all in what you want and how far you're willing to go and what if you think the project is fun, honestly. Uh, Oftentimes, free versions of paid software will come with camera or resolution or frame rate limits or all of the above. And even some free software will have that. Or poorly optimized software can also have those limitations just because it's running on a computer trying to process a bunch of video feeds and it can't do it because it's not efficient enough. So software also has to be compatible if you have an NVR with that. However, like I've said a couple of times, a lot of times if you're deeply concerned about software, you won't have an NVR. So anyway, it'll have to be compatible with your cameras, and you'll have to make sure that you can store video in a way that you like. Those are really going to be your only compatibility limitations, and I've mentioned ONVIF already as one of the publicly available camera communication protocols for the sorts of cameras that you're likely going to want. But we'll talk about cameras, I think, in the next video. So the last thing is trust. You have to be able to very deeply trust your software to not steal data it has available to it, because it has video of sometimes inside your house, but certainly parts of your yard and outside of your house. So you have to trust it to try that it's not trying to steal that data, like location data or just the video feeds themselves or all sorts of stuff you can learn by just having access to that if you want. Because it's always on, it has to be very stable and will probably, like I've mentioned before, run on a Linux or Unix operating system. It also has to be relatively efficient depending on the size of your solution, because again, you're processing potentially a lot of data. So if your software is poorly optimized, you're going to run into major limitations, and worst case scenario, you'll start dropping frames or glitching or dropping feeds altogether, which could compromise your security and defeat the whole purpose of all of this. The last thing is you also want your software to be reasonably future-proof. And future-proofing is a myth, but you can avoid making dumb choices. Like software that uses a reasonably common and open communication standard is usually going to set you up better for the future than stuff that's very limited. And it's not to say I'm going to pick on Ubiquiti's UniFi a little bit here. And it's not to say that their system is bad. Their system is actually quite good for, in my opinion. They're not a sponsor or anything. But in my opinion, their system is actually quite good for what it's offering. It's just expensive, obviously, but it's good. But it's not, in my opinion, very future-proof because it's very locked down. You're using their NVR, you're using their cameras, everything is theirs. So if they decide to disable something that you were using, you're just kind of screwed. And that happened, I believe it was Ubiquiti's UniFi system. I could be wrong. But I believe it was their system where they basically said, okay, we have people running their own servers and NVRs, and we're getting tons of requests to help them because something that we have isn't working with their setup. And it's not our fault. So they stopped supporting it. At least that was, I believe, their publicly stated reasoning. Again, I could be missing details here, so even if I am wrong, it's totally plausible in theory that somebody would do that. But if the software is open and flexible instead of very locked down, you can maybe just find new software that meets your requirements if they change it on you. And there's nothing really wrong with that. Um, so, that Gabby jumping out of my lap tells me that that is the end of this video. And then like I said earlier, I believe the next one I'm going to do is about cameras. So I will see you guys in the next one.